Today is the first time we ever go back to an area that I previously explored on the channel. Today, for the subscriber picked exploration for the 2000 sub special, we return to the very first exploration I ever uploaded to YouTube. Today, we revisit Stratholme and beyond, the hidden zone of Quel'Thalas. Since the first visit here was the first video I ever made on the channel for exploration, it wasn't very good, I'll be honest. It's old, it's outdated. And I think it was by far my best video at the time, but compared to where we are today, it's definitely time to come back here and redo this whole exploration. And look at it more in depth too. Let's jump into my current favorite place in World of Warcraft to explore. The first thing we want to do is head up to the main entrance to Stratholme, and we can very easily metamorphosis onto the top of this tower. Now, after many trials and errors, I know that these buildings have no clip detection from the top, but the pathways are solid. Here's the backside of the main gate. There's actually an invisible wall that I got stuck inside of, but thankfully we can use the Dark Moon Seesaw to get out, or Metamorphosis would have worked as well. Continuing on, the portcullis is here, or the portcullis, maybe? I don't know. Weirdly spawns in after we entered the archway, but thankfully they are fully functional so we can't escape. Also, some of the scenery is missing in this alley. Usually there is a lot more to the scenery here. Moving through the living side and all throughout the Stratholme area, the burnt corpses are still here from the instance itself. There are also some janky textures floating in the air for some locations, which is a bit weird. The main difference between the instance and this version is the lighting. It isn't nearly as dark and gloomy. It's still pretty dark with all those corpses there, but whatever. Heading into the main living area, we can see that the entire Scarlet Crusade's keep is here, but sadly there's a mountain blocking us from going any further past this point right here. I tried for quite a while to get past the mountain, but never could find a way to get past it. I even ended up restarting my exploration and jumped into the pit below the city through the buildings. This led to some interesting observation and scenery, but no way into the building itself. Seeing this is actually quite reminiscent of seeing the out of bounds area within the Stratholme instance itself. It's actually very similar. There's like this giant hill here. I'm actually shocked at how similar it is, to be honest. This is one of my favorite views of the city here, and it's quite trippy. We can also see further into the living side and see all that's truly here. The whole place is actually here, but we just can't. I think that's as close as we're going to get, unfortunately. Now it's time to head to the Undead Side. When heading there, I was kind of bumped weirdly. Very bizarre, very bizarre. I headed into the Undead Side near the chapel, and interestingly enough, the eastern gate is completely misplaced. Kind of weird. When entering the church, we can see a strange text that calls these pews doodads. And you can also climb onto the church, on top of the church, which is pretty fun. Let's continue through the Undead Side. All of the ziggurats are here, and they all have their beautiful green juices to swim in. I went through the whole area, and there are actually missing portcullises, portculli, whatever, and it's kind of weird. Most are visible, but these are not here. So I checked out all three ziggurats, and they are all three the same. There's nothing super incredibly different between the three of them. And now we can move on to the final area of the main instance, and it just looks so menacing. Even without all the hellfire, it's still impressive. Unfortunately, we cannot get into Baron Riverdare's lair, as there is a cliff blocking this as well, just like the living side. Okay, if you've ever done this exploration, then you know what's coming next. Let's head past the slaughterhouse and beyond the portcullis behind it, behind the raid instance. The raid instance portal here was originally going to be where players enter Naxxramas in vanilla World of Warcraft. Originally, you were going to have to cross through Stratholme, and there would be a teleportation pad that brought you up to Nax. You would actually have to head through the instance first. Obviously that never happened, that was never implemented, so this is actually an alpha version that the developers had started and never finished. This is what's left over, an entire model of the original Naxxramas. This is like the first iteration of it, I imagine. The first time I saw this, I was absolutely blown away, and even to this day, there are few discoveries in out-of-bounds areas that are as amazing as an entire model of a raid that was never finished. Oh, I fixed a transmog, by the way. Sorry about that, it looked terrible before, but I don't have 500 gold to change every single time I get a new piece of armor, so you know what I'm saying. This area is also really cool. There are some unfinished buildings here in the original teleport pad too. I wonder how different the next experience would have been if they had kept this feature in of having to go through Stratholme first. It's just a bizarre concept looking at today's game, but back then that was, I mean, you had to go through instances all the time to get to raid, so it was very interesting. Speaking of features, you can actually walk right past these buildings here and there's no clip detection. What a great feature that is. And as you can see, we have a long way to go in our exploration. Here is another amazing view of Stratholme before we continue on. Let's quickly talk about the model of Naxxramas itself. I failed my first attempt to fly over to it because somehow I had forgotten I had goblin gliders. I'm not sure how I missed them in my inventory, but I guess I did. Well, after I finished my exploration of Quel'Thalas, including the oceans and everything, I decided to check again for a goblin glider in my inventory. I found one and I was able to use it to fly into the Naxxramas structure. It's completely empty, but I had to make sure, as I don't feel like the exploration would have been complete without doing that. When I came back with my shaman to explore the oceans properly, I also did the same thing with Farsight on Naxxramas itself, and it seems to confirm that Naxxramas is just a shell. This is the inside of it. Now, let's head to Quel'Thalas. There's a lot here, so Quel'Thalas is the next part on our list. You can even see in the chat channel that it changed to Quel'Thalas. So it is actually a zone that the developers did create, which is very interesting. And on our way to the western side of the area, we are greeted with a magical purple glow that was certainly not there the first time I explored this place in my first video. It is a mystery as to why this is added, and no one I know seems to be able to figure out why. But we will see this again in more detail as we move on with the exploration. It's worth it. It is a very interesting discovery. I decided to head pretty far west to see what we could find in the mountains, and I actually entered the eastern Plaguelands for a little bit. You can see the river below, and there are quite a few invisible barriers to impede my progress, yet I decided to explore the river, and while it is neat, there aren't any major discoveries here. Just interesting that it is fully detailed and fully textured, even though this area is completely out of bounds. Traveling more through the mountains, we get a mixture of mountainous and grassy areas, which are quite beautiful, but nothing too special. Moving along through the mountains for a bit, we can even see Hearthglen from here, which is a really cool view. There's nothing really like major here, but it is a very cool view of Hearthglen. In the distance, at this point, we can see Tearsfall Glades and the Scarlet Monastery. The hills texture palette also changed to Tearsfall scenery, and of course the chat channel changed and the music changed appropriately. This is our first glimpse at the ocean as well, as before we really haven't paid any attention to it, but here's a look at it. When heading west, I decided to stick to the ocean side, and trust me, we will be getting to the ocean soon, but I wanted to cover as much ground as possible. I wanted to be as thorough as possible in this exploration, to see if I missed anything the first time I ever went through here. There's basically a partial zone or even a full zone's worth of ground to cover here, so I will certainly be speeding up different parts of this. Weirdly, I did hit an invisible wall here, but it was not the one that is to the ocean side, as you normally have to cross a barrier to get over to that side. Looking towards Stratholme, you can see the smoke over the area from here, and it's strange to see it at an angle because it's just incredibly flat, which is just bizarre. You can see some Night Elf ruins in the distance, but again, we will get to that area soon enough, but definitely keep this in mind. Keep in mind that there are Night Elf ruins here. I hit another invisible barrier and I realized that I can fly here, which is interesting, and we hit the purple skybox once again. Moving further east takes us to the very, very red skybox of Stratholme, and we get another superb view. You can even obtain a great view of the DK starting zone in the distance. As we continue, you will notice the ground begin to change, and it looks like what I would imagine an alpha version of Ghostlands to be, as it has that blue, purple, green, dark hue to it. I don't even know. Ghostlands has such a unique color palette to it. It's very interesting. Here we can also see a completely out of bounds slaughterhouse. I did my best to enter the building, but it was too far underneath the ground and I couldn't really get a good glimpse at it, and I couldn't enter the building itself with my demon hunter. You can climb on top of it though, which is pretty fun. Now, when I came back here with my shaman, I was actually able to use Farsight to get a glimpse of what was inside. It's just a normal slaughterhouse, but it is still amazing that I was able to view this building that's mostly underground. It's actually fully textured on the inside, which I just thought that was pretty cool. Now, I climbed this mountain range here to show off some of the Eastern Plagueland assets, but also to show that we are now directly behind the portal to Quel'Thalas. How freaking cool is that? This is something that as a kid I was dreaming about doing, and I mean, I've done this exploration like 3 or 4 times now, but look at this, is just cool. There's a fully textured and detailed pathway with siege wagons, plague banners, cages, skulls, blood elf ruins, and I actually wonder if these blood elf ruins were pre-BC, as they are likely some of the only Blood Elf assets prior to the expansion, the Burning Crusade. The pathway goes quite far and makes me wonder if they actually plan to maybe include Quel'Thalas in Vanilla WoW. If you guys know if they were trying to do that, please let me know in the comments, as I am not super up to date with that kind of stuff. This whole open area gives me Ghostlands vibes. That's really what I get out of this area. It looks like this is what they would have implemented as Ghostlands, and the color palette is just so similar. There also were some weird textures going up the mountains again here. This area is just amazing. I decided to head towards the Death Knight starting zone, and the troll music really threw me off here. I forgot that there was a small section of troll ruins in the Eastern Plaguelands. The only thing of note near the DK starting area was a giant plague shroom that's completely out of bounds. What a lovely place to relax. I think I'll sit here for a minute. There's also an amazing view of the starting area of the Death Knights and the necropolis itself. Well, I finally hit the eastern edge of the map, and it honestly looks like the entire sea is plagued, as you aren't really supposed to be able to see the sea with the plagued skybox, so it's just a little bit interesting. Now it's time to finally explore the entire ocean side of this out of bounds zone. When flying down to the very edge of the ocean, something very surprising happened. I entered Twilight Highlands, chat. How strange, but even stranger, it's playing what sounds like Elwyn Forest music. That's a lot of mixed signals here. I think that this is supposed to be great sea music. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So it's not super weird, but it just doesn't fit. The music doesn't fit here, especially if it says we're in Twilight Highlands. As we explore the entire ocean of Stratholme, we will be changing chat channels multiple times. I wanted to explore the bottom of the ocean with my Demon Hunter, but there's honestly a huge weakness to Demon Hunters in exploration. We don't have Farsight. So I brought my Shaman here to explore the ocean floors, which is much easier, and fatigue is something that has hindered my exploration. I have really no idea how to get past fatigue. There are some tricks, but I just have not really taken the time to learn them. At this point on my Demon Hunter, I did hit a channel of Tears Fall Glades, and again with that Elwyn Forest sounding music, and also Chromie time activated for the BFA instance phase of Tears Fall. I don't know why that happened, but okay. We're nowhere near Tears Fall Glades. When swimming along the coast, I did find a single patch of seaweed textures, and as far as I saw, this is the only piece of land like this on the entire upper coastline. Really weird, but nothing really that crazy. Okay, we hit the giant purple area again. We are close to the Night Elf ruins, but we still won't be discussing this just yet. The purple looks very strange underwater though. here we can see the docks of the ruins, but let's finish exploring the coast. It almost looks like the purple area cuts off the ocean, and we can see why with the shaman. Well, we finally hit the far western side of the ocean, so let's use one of the most broken exploration spells in World of Warcraft and check what's truly going on with this ocean area. I start by using Farsight with my shaman to see across the ocean, and look at this amazing view. This was well worth coming back here and glitching out of bounds with my shaman, which is a little bit more difficult. Ignoring all the nostalgia that comes with it, it's just incredible. Like, if I was doing this again without any knowledge of World of Warcraft at all, this is just incredible. I may never know why Blizzard added this glowy purple stuff, but whoever did, thank you for making things a little interesting out here. After looking at the sphere of purple, I went to the bottom of the ocean with Farsight, and there actually is a lot more seaweed here, which is a tad unexpected that they bothered to texture a good portion of the ocean like this. I'm not sure why they did that. At the very edge of the map, I found another great view of the sphere. Like, this is incredible. Afterwards, I really just kept looking through the ocean, and there's some texture changes down here, from seaweed to like a dirt type texture. Nothing too crazy. At one point, I was actually accidentally able to clip through the wall, the cliff, with Farsight, which does happen pretty often when you use it on a very steep cliff, and here's what I saw. Pretty much what's expected, but I am quite happy with the view from underneath the map. When I went to the other side of the ocean on the out of bounds portion, the skybox turned back to the play color, which is really weird because we're technically in the Great Sea, so there shouldn't be any plague in the Great Sea. When I got to a certain point at the bottom of the ocean, it weirdly would not let me go any further. There was some stuff I could do, but it was really quite difficult. It took me a while to get around, but eventually I was able to see some of these bizarre shadows. Now, these shadows seem to be just assets from Eastern Plaguelands, but they're in the middle of the ocean, thousands of feet away. It's kind of crazy that we can even see these out here, because remember, you have Eastern Plaguelands, and then you have Quel'Thalas, and then you have the ocean, so it's quite weird to see these shadows all the way out here. That's really all I saw on my shaman, and eventually I traveled so far that I made it to the Twilight Highlands. I'll save that for another time. Well, now that we've explored the entire ocean of Quel'Thalas, it's finally time to check out the Night Elf ruins that we've seen multiple times. This place is one of my favorite all-time places in an out-of-bounds area that I've ever seen, and the area now has a new purple light that just made the area even more beautiful and more mysterious, and I could spend hours here. I decided to take a nice break here, and I did some fishing. After that refreshing break, I took one last look at this amazing place. When I did come back to this area with my shaman, I used Farsight to see under the map, and I was also able to look inside of the tower. I didn't find anything though. There just has to be something hidden here. The world may never know though. Thank you all for watching this video. Thank you to my patrons, and if you'd like to more about how you can get your name at the end of the video, check the link in the description. I really just want to say again that I appreciate all my subscribers. This has been a crazy journey, and I'm very glad that you all chose to join me in it.